Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below because today we're going deep into a political drama with more twists and turns than, well, your favorite streaming series.
Oh, yeah. This one's got it all.
It does. So we're talking John Kelly, Donald Trump, and Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. And oh boy, you are not going to want to miss this one.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that you just can't make up. I mean, it stretches back years and then suddenly it's back, and it's like even more intense than before. It's not just politics, It's personal betrayals, power dynamics, and really it's about the weight of words.
Yeah, you're right. It's like a political time capsule that just burst open, and now all this stuff's flying out. So for those who need a quick refresher, John Kelly was Trump's chief of staff. Congresswoman Frederica Wilson is a Democrat from Florida. And well, I think we all know who Trump is at this point. But the big news is that Kelly has been making some serious waves, like some shocking criticisms of Trump. He's even gone so far as to compare him to Hitler.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so explosive. It's coming from an insider. This isn't just some pundit on cable news. This is a guy who was in the room where it happened. He saw Trump up close every single day.
Exactly. It's like reading one of those tell-all books from a disgruntled ex-employee, except this is about the freaking president of the United States.
Yeah.
And of course, Rep. Wilson has a lot to say about all this, especially considering their very public clash back in 2017.
Right. That 2017 incident is key to understanding everything that's going on now. It involved the death of Strat Lady David Johnson, a soldier from Wilson's district who was killed in Niger. And it wasn't just a political disagreement either. It really touched on those deep-seated issues, like respecting the military and supporting grieving families.
So, okay, let's set the scene here. Trump calls Myeshia Johnson, Strat Johnson's widow, to offer his condolences right. Rep. Wilson is with Myeshia, and the call's on speakerphone. And according to both of them, Trump's words were just deeply insensitive. He said something like, Strat Johnson knew what he signed up for.
Yeah, and this is important. We have to remember that it's not just about what was said. It's also about how it was perceived. Myeshia Johnson and Rep. Wilson, they felt that Trump's words lacked empathy and respect, especially coming from the commander-in-chief.
Yeah, totally. Like, imagine losing your husband in service to your country, and then the president calls and says something that just dismisses that sacrifice.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is.
And then to make things even worse, Kelly jumped in to defend Trump, and he just went on the attack against Rep. Wilson, basically accusing her of grandstanding, exploiting the situation for political gain.
It was a total mess. He painted her as this attention-seeking politician, trying to score points off a tragedy.
Yeah, and you can imagine how that went over, especially with everyone already so raw over Strat Johnson's death. I think this whole thing became symbolic of a much larger trend we saw with Trump. This silencing of dissent, this demonizing anyone who dared to criticize him.
Yeah, it was like you were either with him or against him. No middle ground. So fast forward to 2024, Kelly's out there bashing Trump, saying he's a threat to democracy. Wilson's like, hold up, wait a minute. Where were you all those years when he was actually in office?
It's like she's saying, you decide to speak up now, after all the damage is done. I think there's this sense of betrayal there, and a frustration with the people who enabled Trump for so long.
Right. It's not just that Kelly changed his mind. It's that he was silent when it mattered most. And that brings us to the heart of this whole deep dive. What does it mean to be a cowardly enabler? What kept people like Kelly from speaking out?
That's the question we're going to explore. What are the psychological factors, the political calculations? What leads someone to enable harmful behavior, even when they know it's wrong? It's a fascinating question, and we're going to get into all of it.
Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get really interesting.
Yeah, that idea of enabling. It's crucial to understand why Rep. Wilson sees Kelly's comments as too little too late. For her, it's not just about Kelly finally admitting Trump's flaws. It's about the years of silence that came before. It's about a pattern of behavior.
And speaking of patterns, there's this incident from 2015 that really adds fuel to the fire. It involved the dedication of a federal building in Miami, named after 2 FBI agents killed in the line of duty. Kelly, while still in the White House, publicly accused Wilson of taking credit for securing the building's funding. Basically, he tried to paint her as this glory hound, using a solemn occasion to boost her own ego.
And what makes this even more shocking is that Kelly's accusation was completely false. There's actual video footage of the event showing that Wilson was simply honoring the fallen agents, highlighting the building's importance. She never claimed credit for the funding. It's like Kelly just made up this whole narrative to discredit her.
Wow, so this wasn't just a one-time thing. It seems like Kelly had a history of attacking Wilson, even when those attacks were based on lies. You can see why she might be skeptical of his sudden change of heart about Trump.
Exactly. For Wilson, this isn't just about Kelly having a late-night epiphany. It's about a pattern of behavior. That suggests he was willing to put loyalty to Trump above truth and fairness. And that raises some really uncomfortable questions about the choices people make when confronted with power.
Okay, so we have this backdrop of tension and mistrust between Kelly and Wilson. Now let's rewind to 2017 and zoom in on that controversial phone call between Trump and News-dyo Johnson. We know Trump's words were perceived as insensitive, but let's break down exactly what he said and why it caused such a firestorm.
According to News-dyo Johnson's account, Trump told her that Sprink Johnson knew what he signed up for, but it hurts anyway. On the surface, it might sound like a clumsy attempt at consolation, but in the context of a grieving widow who just lost her husband in service to the country, those words came across as deeply callous and dismissive of the ultimate sacrifice he made.
It's like telling someone who just lost their home in a fire, well, at least you have insurance. Sure, it might technically be true, but it completely misses the emotional weight of the situation.
Precisely. And to add insult to injury, according to News-dyo Johnson, Trump also struggled to remember her husband's name. That detail for her really underscored the lack of genuine empathy and respect in that call.
And we can't forget the role of Rep. Wilson in all of this. She was present for the call and felt compelled to speak out about what she witnessed. She wanted to ensure that News-dyo Johnson's account was heard and that the true nature of Trump's words was known.
And that's what triggered Kelly's initial outburst and his attack on Rep. Wilson. He accused her of exploiting a private conversation for political gain, essentially trying to silence her and discredit her account of the events.
So Kelly went on the defensive, arguing that Trump's words were taken out of context and that Wilson was twisting the narrative for her own benefit. He even shared a personal anecdote about the death of his own son, suggesting that Trump was simply trying to express condolences in his own way.
But here's where things get really tricky. Kelly's defense of Trump hinged on the idea that Wilson had misrepresented the phone call. However, as we've already discussed, News-dyo Johnson herself corroborated Wilson's account. This raises some serious questions about Kelly's honesty and his motivations for attacking Wilson.
It's almost like he was more concerned with protecting Trump's image than with acknowledging the pain and disrespect experienced by a grieving military family.
And that takes us back to this idea of enabling. Was Kelly so caught up in his loyalty to Trump that he was willing to overlook or downplay the president's hurtful actions? And if so, what does that say about the people who surrounded Trump and the choices they made?
It's like we're peeling back the layers of this onion and finding more and more complexity with each layer. And now, years later, Kelly's singing a different tune about Trump, calling him a danger to democracy, and even comparing him to Hitler.
It's a dramatic reversal, and it forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about Kelly's role in the Trump administration. Was he a moderating influence, as some have suggested, or was he simply a complicit enabler who looked the other way while Trump engaged in increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior?
And of course, Rep. Wilson isn't letting Kelly off the hook. She's basically saying, "I told you so," and accusing him of being a coward who only found his voice once it was politically safe to do so.
Wilson's perspective is crucial here, because it highlights the long-lasting impact of Trump's presidency. Even years later, the wounds inflicted by his words and actions continue to fester, and the debate over who knew what and when continues to rage on.
This whole story is like a political thriller, with betrayals, shifting alliances, and the constant struggle to discern truth from spin. It's hard to know who to believe and whose motives are truly pure.
But that's precisely why we need to keep digging. We need to understand the underlying dynamics at play, the motivations of the individuals involved, and the broader context in which these events unfolded.
Because it's not enough to just follow the headlines. We need to grapple with the complexities, the nuances, and the uncomfortable questions raised by this whole saga.
And in doing so, we might gain a deeper understanding of the forces that continue to shape our political landscape.
You know, as we've been going through all this, one thing just keeps hitting me. The power of words. It's incredible. Whether it's Trump's call to News-dyo Johnson, Kelly's attacks on Rep. Wilson, or even their more recent statements, it's clear that words can leave scars. They wound, they inflame, and they shape our perceptions in ways we don't even realize.
Yeah, and what's so striking is how these events, separated by years, are now so intertwined. Wilson's past experiences with Kelly, they directly influence how she sees him today. It makes you wonder, can we ever truly separate the personal from the political?
Right. It's like this whole situation is one giant echo chamber.
Right.
Where past grievances and betrayals just keep reverberating in the present. And for Wilson, It seems like Kelly's criticism of Trump is almost beside the point. Her focus is on holding him accountable for what she sees as his complicity in the harm caused during the Trump administration.
And that brings up a huge question about accountability. Can someone who enabled harmful actions later redeem themselves by speaking out against the person they supported? And if so, does that absolve them of responsibility for the consequences of their earlier silence?
Those are tough questions, and I don't think there are easy answers. It's messy, it's nuanced, and it probably depends on who you ask.
Exactly. There's no single objective truth here, Trump, Kelly, Wilson. They each have their own perspectives, their own motivations, their own interpretations of events, and it's our job as observers to grapple with that complexity.
And that's what makes this story so fascinating. It's not just about political drama. It's about human nature, the choices we make in the face of power, and the struggle to align our values with our actions.
You know, this whole deep dive, it's really an invitation for you, the listener, to think critically about the information you encounter. Question assumptions. Consider multiple perspectives. Don't just accept things at face value. Dig deeper. Explore the nuances. And form your own conclusions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, engaging with these stories, wrestling with the tough questions, and using that knowledge to better understand the world around us.
And as this particular story continues to unfold, it'll be interesting to see how these themes of truth, accountability, and the legacy of the Trump administration continue to play out.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We covered a lot of ground, explored some complex issues, and hopefully sparked some interesting thoughts along the way. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with your thoughts. We love hearing from you. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.